special meeting because we need to do the oath of office. It has to be done tonight, so. Okay, so we will start with the demographic study update.
We had Hazel Reinhardt complete the demographic study last winter, spring, late winter, early spring. And with this year's increase in enrollment, plus the additional housing units that were unknown at the time of the study, or were not provided to her at the time of the study, we felt that was wise to do a refreshed, at least that piece of the study. And the results are attached. If you just open the summary, the evaluation. Just some of the highlights there. It has our actual enrollment of 1,873 students. And we have followed the pattern of the last 6 years of low kindergarten, high migration. So if you look at that particular column, it predicted, or Hazel predicted, 1,854, so slightly above what was predicted there. And if we factor in the housing units, I'm just going to drop right down to the bottom just to get to the summary, and then we can discuss it. And there's one piece that I noticed last week when I was going through it that we have to reach out to Hazel on. But if we go into the projections going forward, things change considerably. Just got to find it here. Projections going forward here.
For the housing unit growth?
No, for our enrollment. I have it too. I have it right here.
Page 6?
With the range. So basically with her original projection compared to where we are today, she was understated, and she now feels that those ranges are going to be quite high. I apologize. Here it is.
Second attachment.
So it says the assumptions result in higher projections, which are shown in the next table. That would be page 6. The 2017 projections range from 1,735 students to 1,921 students. The 2018 projections that she just completed range from 1,874 to 2,131. So, you know, about 130 student jump, 140 student jump compared to what she was originally projected. And there's one other factor, and I mentioned it a second ago. When we provided, the city provided us with data that we then provided to Hazel. One thing that we don't see in here, there's a 30-unit townhome development that is going to be started this winter. Actually, they've been permitted. And 15 of those units are subsidized, and 15 of them are unsubsidized, and it ranges from 2 to 3 bedrooms. I don't see where she has that figured into her data. So that could also, it's not going to decrease, it's certainly going to increase our enrollment projection. We're going to double check that with her, but we noticed that was left off the study when she had the housing units, the new housing unit growth factored in. So all in all, it's good news. One of the things that came out of our long-range facility planning, a couple of the questions that were asked was, where are we sitting with our enrollment projections? And this will help paint that picture on Thursday night when we meet with that team of people to share. So did anybody have any aha moments, anything that you noticed out of the study, the refresh study? Just wanted to provide those details before Thursday night. Nothing? Yeah, so if you look at the projected unit housing growth, it does not have in the 30 units that are over by Timberline.
On County Road 9, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right.
So I can pull up that city email too. The city planner's name, Addison.
One thing that I noticed on page 7 of the first document was that she talks about in 2018-19, the average K-4 grade has 125 students, while the average middle school grade has 159 students. But we always get students enrolling in 5th and 6th grade,
Mm-hmm.
or actually 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. And so, to me, I don't know was that factored in? I mean, it didn't look like it to me. Like that she wasn't taking that into consideration. Like she's saying that we're going to have high graduating classes, but then lower, kindergarten classes. But at some point, we end up getting more and more through time because kids enroll coming over from St. John's or whatever the deal may be. So I just noticed that was something that was also, I don't know that was taken into consideration.
Yeah, and this one was just not, it's called the Pineview Townhomes. It says in 2018, this is the email from the city. In 2018, the city has issued permits for 52 new housing units. So this, I don't see this factored in, 28 of which are for Pineview Townhomes.
Yeah, I don't see that either.
And I asked for more details from the planner, Addison Lewis is his name, and he stated that they're going to be built this fall and winter and available next summer. They are 2 and 3 bedroom and most certainly result in more kids. And 50% of them are subsidized and 50% of them are non-subsidized. So that will definitely result in higher projections than what is currently on this study. So
one other question I had, this is maybe for whoever put this together. They state a 0.6 assumption of students per household. Is that a blended state average or is that a Jordan average? Because I think with us being a bedroom community, I would think it might be a little bit higher.
that's a good question. It's one that we can ask her between now and Thursday. Any other questions? That's great. So we got Sandy's point, Jesse's point. We want to find out a little bit more about the Pineview Townhomes. Anything else that popped out that we want to get clarification on prior to Thursday's meeting?
Rob, do you have anything from your end up there, out there, over there?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, well, if you have anything that pops up in the next day or so, let Matt know so he can get answers for us before Thursday. Anything else on that?
No.
Okay. Middle school, back to school and conference data.
We have Mr. Bakeberg here tonight to share his summary and to answer any questions you might have. So this is in regard to the new format for back to school and also for the first round of conferences in which, if you recall, Ben had come to the board and asked for approval to allow for an online learning day, a flexible learning day. And we just did it for 5th through 8th grade students. So he got some feedback from families, from his staff, and is going to share that with us tonight, and then we can ask questions about that format. And I believe you want to ask for approval going forward for the spring as well.
So, yeah, so thanks for letting me come and just provide a summary of the back to school night was the family resource night, we called it, and then the online learning day for parent teacher conferences. So I'll start with that, and really kind of going back to why we did this. Through the strategic planning process, one of our goals was to increase parent participation. we were at about 59% when you took all of those, the attendance at conferences, open house, and historically open house was higher. And then as we move throughout the year, attendance wanes with conferences. So, but so what we did is looked at how can we get creative about that back to school night, and then how can we not only engage families, but the right families that we need to connect with on that on the conference night. So that's how we came up with the online learning day, or the flexible learning day, and it was the online learning day was very successful. So we had 92% attendance of the families that scheduled conferences. Each grade level sent out we sent it out, but each grade level had a list of students that they flagged that we wanted to invite to meet with, and it really ranged from students struggling, but new families to the district, and teachers really looked at some emerging leaders and called out some of the leadership potential in those kids. So it was really across the board, and we really tried to move away from it being that your kid is struggling to we want to help come alongside you and call out the potential in your kid. So we had 66 out of the 72 families scheduled came that night, and the powerful thing is there are 66 action plans that are currently in place right now helping kids be successful. In the past, we would have been able to do some of those at most, probably around 30 or so that we go just with the time crunch. So we were able to meet the needs of different families. A number of our families offered us feedback that they would love to come, but with their work schedule, they're not able to come to the meeting. So that option during the day was really a powerful option. So that was an important takeaway. I provided in my notes, there's a link to both an English and a Spanish, just really a nuts and bolts document, and this is the communication that would help with families to lay out all the who, what, when, where, why. You had offered feedback about wanting to provide the opportunity for families that don't have daycare for their middle school kids, and that was excellent feedback. We took that, put that in place. We had 24 families take it, or 24 students take advantage of that opportunity, so they came to school, and our paraprofessionals supported those kids. But the really neat thing is our summit program students came and spent the day with those students, and it was fantastic. So you had kids, some of them were true needs about daycare, but some of them, once parents heard that there was going to be support, they said, I wanted to be there so they can be getting some help from those high school kids. So
Cool.
was a huge win from that standpoint. So a big shout out to Aaron Yamlin and Ann Jans and our high school summit program students, and Mr. Visner for being willing to do that. Then we went into our open house conference night, and really the hope of that was to lessen the lines. Our fall conferences are traditionally very well attended, which is a great problem to have. But some of those families that we really want to spend time with, we scheduled that on the open house night, or the scheduled time. And I should go back. We still had some slots open, so we actually ended up sending it out to all families that if you would like to have more than 5 minutes with the teacher, please take one of the open slots. So then that opened up the scheduled night, or that filled some of the scheduled times as well on the 16th. That resulted in less lines. We still have lines. We're going to have that. But the flow of families getting through, as I just informally walked around and they said, yeah, this is nice. We have them set up in the commons and in the gym so people could bounce from line to line if they needed to. So you can see the 16th was 92% attendance. On the 25th, it's broken down by grade level. If we scroll down, you can see that 5th grade is very well attended. There's 67%, and that overall, that includes the 16th and the 5th. So overall, for the grade level, we had 67% of our students attend, and you can see from there. So you can see we're at about 51% attendance for our conferences. If you go back to last year, our conferences ranged from about 40 to about 32% attendance. So it increased attendance at our conferences. So we felt like it was very successful. And the biggest takeaway was meeting with the families that we needed to meet with and talk with, and really kind of call out some of the potential within our students. So with that, on February 21st, we would like to repeat that. And as we're going into the winter and kind of gearing up for the spring, meeting with families, and there will be some repeats, I'm sure, but also there will be new families that we're able to meet with on February 21st if we do the online learning day. And really the goal will be to help students and support students to finish the year well. And then on March 19th, we'll do our traditional open house conferences like we've done, and they're successful. It's a quick check for families to come in and touch base. Questions on conferences?
Sounds like it was very successful.
Yeah, we really exemplified the power of we with our faculty council, bringing it back to their grade level teams, then me bringing it to you guys offering your feedback, and then bring it back to faculty council and finalizing it. So yeah, it was good.
Did you feel there was a lot of confusion at all with families because this was something new, or was it communicated so well that everybody just got it?
We had some families that asked, but it was, we really tried to be intentional with our communication of our families that didn't have internet. We sent home a paper version of that in both English and Spanish to all of our families. So we really tried to be very intentional with our communication.
Good.
And we would do the same again with anything. There are going to be people like, we went to school today, but yeah, there's only a couple of those that Brendan covers only one, so
Okay.
not a bad percentage. So the back to school resource night, in there was a checklist in the packet, and to be honest with you, this was probably the highlight of the year. It was just a great start, just a great way to start the year. And Jason Allen was the DJ. He did a fantastic job. 3 different food trucks. Families really enjoyed that. I want to read them and recognize them. So Granite Rock Stone Fired Pizza, that was Troy Mahoney. He did that. He and DJ Noise. I play on the Millers with those guys, so I had a little thing with them. Lady A's Cupcakes. She said that she actually sold more cupcakes at our back to school night than she does on Hyderfest. So
Wow.
it was a very successful evening. And then Dahlia's All in One they were just fantastic. So yeah, so those 3 food trucks they did a great job, and it was just enough that there were options for families, but there weren't too many options, so it was still successful for them. And I'm in a South Metro Principals group where we meet and shared about it, and Dana Miller was like, I love that idea, I'm going to steal that. So we did a survey of families just to see how we could improve and make it better. The biggest feedback that we got, that families enjoyed the flexibility, the choice, and then just the messages kind of were a feel of the night. And people just enjoyed the more relaxed feel. And you can see some of the comments there. The feedback that we got really centered around people wanting to still have access to their teachers. So that's something that we'll add in. So our faculty council will be looking at what's the best way to do that. So we've got a couple different ideas on how we're going to do that. whether it's a scheduled time where they meet and they walk through a schedule, or whether it's the teachers are available from this time to this time. We need to coordinate with activities because the conference sets the activity schedule. So this year, the 7th and 8th grade football team was in St. Peter that night, so they got back right at the tail end. One of the fun things is tennis was here, so it was just another event going on. So tennis got some fans that night as well.
And cross country's always gone that day too.
Yeah, cross country had a meet down in
Stewartville.
Stewartville, yeah. So one of the other comments that we got from families was it was pretty intimidating to walk up and have all of the tables underneath the awning area. And that wasn't the original plan. We were going to have them spaced out in the courtyard area in front, but we had all the folders and things ready to go, and we rolled them out on tables, and the wind caught. I mean, there were about 20 folders that flew everywhere. So that's why we shifted everyone underneath, because of the wind. It was a beautiful night, but the wind forced us all to kind of be under there. But we'll probably take those folders, put them in the pod, disperse them as a way for families to be able to connect with their teachers, get the information they need, but also have the in and out that works for their family. Any questions on that?
Quick one. Is this something that we may look to replicate with elementary or high school as well? Maybe next year?
That's up to the principals.
Okay. I'm just curious.
I'd like to
I
see
mean,
food trucks.
we're seeing success here. Is it, you know, repeatable in other areas, and we're getting good feedback? It might be something to think about.
Yeah, I think every building is a little unique, so I have to
Exactly.
do what works for
Yep.
those particular buildings. And yeah, I think one of the pieces we're presenting on at the MSBA conference is the whole flexibility and back to school
Yep.
way of doing business, and it's different, you know, in all of our buildings. The next presentation is on the Kickstart to Kindergarten, and that was new this year as well, and just I think there's different levels of need too, and I think that's another balancing act that we
Yep.
have to try to figure out, you know, with the different age appropriateness and
Yeah.
the support that families need. Like a elementary,
Yeah.
they want to sit down and have a more formal conference. I think high school, it probably lends itself more into a high school type of environment too. So that's something that I know Jeff talked about with Ben this year.
Sure.
Yeah, he and I talked about it. One of the
Okay.
things that our faculty council has talked about is doing an online day that first day of school. And honestly, I'm not in support of that,
Yeah.
because I really like, and it's worked really well here and other places that I've been, to have that 5th grade jump start prior to the start of the school year.
Yeah.
Because that's a big transition for kids.
Yep.
So you do that, and then they're able to go through a night like this, and then just have time on their own to get those butterflies worked out. So I think our 5th graders, they have Jumpstart Day, which our staff does an amazing job with. And then they can get questions answered and come in and practice their locker. Because there's a steady stream of those 5th graders coming in. I just want to practice it one more time. I just want to do it one more time.
Yep.
So that's where I would advocate that we leave that there.
Agreed.
Because of the difference of need. And then a 6th, 7th, and 8th grader, the first day of school, they're not going to be as successful as a high school.
Sure.
An online learning. So it's something Jeff and I will obviously talk about. We had some conversations about doing it that way this year across the district with some of the teacher leaders, and things just didn't pan out this year.
Oh yeah, no, that's fair. That's a good trial. It's good results. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
it's
great.
awesome. It's a great idea.
So we will put on the December, whatever it is, 11th or whatever the meeting is, we'll put the February 21st thing on the agenda for an action item.
Sounds good.
Okay? Thank you.
It's 6:56.
Yeah, can we sneak ahead 4 minutes, you
Yep.
think?
Melissa, before we do that, we're going to go to
Yeah.
we're actually going to go into our special meeting. Rob has to bug out at 7-ish. So we're gonna go in our special meeting, we're gonna do some work there, and then we'll come back to the work session. Okay?
Okay, so we're going to go into recess for our workshop meeting, and I will call the special meeting of Monday, November 26th to order, and we'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chair notes that all board members are present. I think that we have time that we might as well do the whole ball of wax here. Consent agenda, we have several resignations and a couple of new hires, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
Motion to approve.
Lauren, is there a second?
Second.
Sandy, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our action items are certification of election, and all of us will be, have to sign the certification forms that Hope has, and Rob, you'll have to, as soon as you get back in town, stop up and sign the form. But part of the process is that we all need to take the acceptance of the oath of office, and we have a timeline that we have to do that in. So in the essence of time, we'll do all 6 of us at one time. So Hope, if you would like to administer the oath?
Have I in the past?
I think so.
I don't know.
I don't recall.
Here, you can use this.
Do you have it in front of you?
Can you bring it up?
I do.
Bring it up on the screen. Oh, is that it?
So we're doing,
The oath
we'll
part.
all do it at once?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so if we could all stand and
I've done it.
raise our right hands, except for Lauren. And it's just the oath part down towards the bottom, I believe. I hereby, yep.
So I'll do a call and repeat, or
Mhm.
just? I swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state,
And that I will discharge faithfully the duties of the office of school board member
and that I will discharge faithfully the duties of the office of school board member
of Independent School District number 717
of Independent School District 717
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability. I don't think we had to do that acceptance piece, did we?
Yeah, I don't know if we need to do that.
You're signing
I-
that.
Yeah, I think we just have to
Yeah,
sign
sign
it,
that
so.
one.
Yeah.
We are all
Yeah, I think
official.
it's just a,
All right.
You're official, Rob.
Great.
so I can pass them.
Thank
over.
you.
I think.
Okay, and then you have all the forms there, Sandy?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm passing them out.
Great, okay. That is it, so I will entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, we are adjourned. Okay, we are out of recess and back in our workshop meeting, so.
Right.
You good?
Thanks again, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank
Have a
you.
good,
Bye, Rob.
have a good meeting. Talk to
Thank
you
you.
soon. Okay, we are on to elementary school kickstart to kindergarten and conferences data.
Yeah, I guess.
We have both Mrs. Barnett.
You only signed the one.
What?
Just
Sorry.
this one.
Yeah, sorry.
They have your names on them. Your names are on them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
On the top.
We
Did
have,
you
Here's
become
yours,
different?
Tom.
Sorry.
nope. We
Yeah, I
have
need
both
the top
Mrs. Barnett
sheet.
and Mrs. Olstad here tonight to talk about, and thank you, Steph, for coming. Very nice of you. To talk about the Kickstart to Kindergarten program that Steph and your entire kindergarten team really facilitated and built upon, and I think it was successful. I had a chance to review the data today, probably one of the first ones, and you can't argue with the results. So we'll go ahead and let you present on that information.
Thank you for letting me come in and share, and thanks, like Matt said, to Steph Olstad for coming in. This really was a team effort in the sense of the kindergarten team being asked to dream big, and if you could change things to make this a better experience for our kindergartners, what that could look like. So they put a lot of time and effort into it beforehand, during, and now after, as we're looking through some of the results of the survey and taking that feedback. Our focus was really being able to think about, as kindergartners, we wanted to have an experience where it was really all about our youngest kiddos coming into the district and wanting to really focus on what their needs were. I think what's been really great to see is we've had a great start to our kindergarten year, and I think a lot of it is attributed to the work that went into our Kickstart program and being able to be mindful of their needs as individuals, but as a collective group, and looking at setting them up for success academically and socially and emotionally. So you have the survey here in front of you, and we had 51 responses, and we have a class of 116 kindergartners, so that's roughly 44% of families who completed the survey. So that's good for us to know, because as we read through the feedback, we still have a little bit more than half of our families that, for whatever reason, either didn't feel compelled to respond, or we may have heard from throughout the course of that event, or since then, who just felt like, I already talked with people, I think I'm good. So just know that it's always good to just be mindful of the percentages, because we don't want to miss out on the people's voices that aren't here.
And somebody else might have this statistic too, but I think 44%, is that what you said? That's pretty good for
Yeah,
a
that's
survey.
pretty high.
I want to say 25% is probably average. So that's probably pretty good, good response.
And you can see from the first question, we wanted to keep the survey very simple, but we also wanted it to be very purposeful so that we could use it to make decisions for next year. So the first question was just overall their takeaway of Kickstart for their child. So just to give you a frame of reference, the one is written in the question as improvements are greatly needed, to 4 being very satisfied. So if you look at the data, that overall rating of the experience, 77% of those families who were surveyed felt really good. Reason for it's about overall their Kickstart experience. Looking at the communication that they received over the summer months, which is the next question, once again, 71% of families felt pretty good about the communications that went out. And I think, like Mr. Bayford was saying, is that one of the things that it's always good to look at a survey is you think you're communicating at certain levels and you're feeling like you're giving all this information, and it just always seems to be somewhere, somehow, people didn't get the message. So it's always good to reflect on, so what is it that we could continue to do to improve upon, even though we felt like we put a lot of information out. But, it is what it is. Overall, people felt pretty good about how things were communicated. The next question is probably, as we looked at the survey data, that requires us to have a lot more conversation about it. And this is maybe where your feedback would be helpful too, is that staggered start time. One of the things that we really wanted to make sure, kind of like Jumpstart, is we wanted our kindergartners to be just in the building themselves. And the way that we felt it was best to do that was to have it when kids were having those back to school conferences in grades 1 through 4. And I would say the school environment for our kindergartners, I mean, it was great. We had so many people, from kids to staff to everybody coming in and out of the building, just saying, wow, this was great for the kindergartners to just have everybody's attention. From our paras getting to know them, our specialists, we really went through a full regular day so that we could have everybody really getting to know those kindergartners and them getting the attention they got, we thought they deserved. I don't know, Steph, if you want to add anything to that piece?
Yeah, I think it was phenomenal, because something like the lunchroom is usually high stress.
Thank you.
Because we're on such a tight time frame always, and so even things like the lunchroom, we didn't have to like herd them in and herd them out those first 2 days. So they kind of figured out the whole routine at a much less stressful pace. And I would say that's kind of how the rest of our day felt too, because they didn't have to hurry from one place to the next quite as stringently because it was affecting other grade levels or other people's schedules.
If you're in our building during, midday, you know that main hallway is very busy and very congested, and I think that overwhelms our little people even in November as far as that traffic pattern goes. And not having that also allowed those kids, I think, to just be in the school and go, oh, great, I'm in the hallway, now I need, I know where to go to the bathroom, those types of things, without all of the craziness as far as that transition time.
And they had so many familiar faces on that first day to walk in, and now some parents commented, they didn't know who to look for or whatever, but by the time they were done with those 2 days, they knew all 6 of us kindergarten teachers, probably 15 paras, all the specialists, that had only divided their time amongst the kindergartners versus everyone else. So I think that was a huge benefit. I mean, even now, kindergarten kids are coming up to all of us teachers that they're not in our homeroom now, but they'll be like, hey, Mrs. Olstad, you were my teacher, remember? Or even with paras and things like that, which I think has been huge as far as that comfort level starting school and ongoing, that they have this huge group of people that they know they can go to, and kind of that power of we piece.
So
Again, that they have all those people that they know.
just listening to the two of you share about this, I think one of the things that's popping in my head as you look at the bar graph here, this might be a great opportunity to do like a Q&A type thing, for next year's kindergartners. Question, why do we have a staggered start? Answer, and then share the why. Because I think oftentimes people don't look at it with a lens of it's best for students, especially if you're not in education or focused on it. You're just looking at it as, well, it's the day after Labor Day, you should be starting, and that's how it should be, that type of thing.
Some of the other things that I think you referenced earlier in the conversation with the middle school is that parents, they're their child's biggest advocate, and they're looking at through the lens of, this is my child, this is what we need as a family and as a parent of this child, and not realizing sometimes that bigger picture. And that's the part that we see more of at our levels, as far as the bigger picture of how it works as a community of learners and a community of staff, and how to provide that experience to those kids. However, it's really good to note that Kids Co wasn't offered to everybody as far as an option for daycare, because some of the things that came in the survey is when you do a staggered start, you take out some of the older kids from the middle school and high school that are siblings that could help with daycare options. So there were some of those comments that the staggered time, one comment was we had a kindergartner, a second grader, and a fifth grader. And so if you think about that family had 3, different times to think through as far as that first week of school. And it's establishing some new norms, change, to look at the traffic patterns, that first week of school. The first day when you have 1st through 4th grade families wanting to come in and drop their kids off, and then kindergartners are the following week, and then that big group of families come in for that first day. I mean, some of it is, once again, bigger picture, but we need to be mindful of what are some things we could tweak, whether it's Kids Co, whether it's thinking about, is that first week the best week? Is it looking at something like Jump Start, where it's before the start of the school year? Those are all things that came out of this question in regards to the survey feedback. It's going to be outweighing the pros and cons, and that's the hard part, is once again, you're establishing some new norms. There were a few comments about my older kid this versus my younger kid now, but really some of the things that I thought were really kind of fun to read. First time is always a learning curve, so I think a lot of families recognize that it wasn't going to be perfect, and that they appreciate, a lot of them said thank you so much for taking time to read through our comments. I know it was the first year, so I know every year we'll get better. So I think that's where most of the survey results are very positive. But I think some of the takeaways as the kindergarten team sat down, I'm so fortunate to have such an awesome kindergarten team. They already have problems solved for next year. They did some brainstorming already as far as how to address some of the survey results. But if you go through transportation, if you note, we worked hard with Eric from Benjamin Bus and making sure that we had busing provided. So if you look, you know, we had a significant number of kids take the bus. Still, most families chose to, you know, drop off, pick up, or change the transportation mode each day. Kind of depended on how things worked. The other thing we looked at, if you scroll, Matt was looking at, there's the child care piece. So most of them stayed home with some family member, but kids company was the next big piece. Other was probably more of those, I took off from work so that, you know, I was at home, but my wife went to work one day, you know, so some of it, that's the other piece. We offered breakfast. Not as many kids chose breakfast as we anticipated, which is good for Andrea to know, to kind of look at why that might be.
We as a team talked about that, wondering if maybe that was a piece that it's even tricky at the beginning of kindergarten for the first month or so. Like, how do they get off the bus and they have to learn to, on their own, go into the lunchroom and get their breakfast. So as a team, we kind of talked that maybe that's a piece that we need to somehow tell parents how it would look or how to do it if you want your kid to have it, or, you know, do they write it on their name tag, or, you know, because otherwise we don't know that kiddo even needs to have breakfast. We don't have any way to know that necessarily. So, and maybe it's just easier to do it at home, I don't know.
What's the take rate now with kindergarten eating breakfast?
Probably pretty similar.
That's kind of what I figured.
So do they, like, do they not know, or is it?
No, they know, and kindergarten breakfast is free. But what we see probably is what Steph talked about, is that some families just decide, you know, we're doing breakfast at home. Some of it's breakfast item choices that they see, and they're like, oh, that's really not something my kid's interested in having.
A lot of them are up significantly earlier than when they actually come to school. You know, if they're at daycare ahead of time, or kids call, you know, different things like that on the bus even, then, you know, they usually, I think, are hungry before they get to school probably.
Was it even worth us offering it with that low take rate?
What's that?
Is it even worth us offering breakfast?
Well, and that's what we need to ask them about.
Yeah.
Do they get, does Kids Co feed the kids breakfast?
Yeah.
They do. So that 29.4%, that's not Kids Co kids then? Okay.
Is that K through 4 or just kindergarten?
This is just kindergarten.
Just kindergarten.
At Kickstart.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if we did, okay, never mind. I was thinking if we went K through 4, like right now, is it just, I know for kindergarten it's like that, but is that K through 4 as well?
Probably pretty close.
I can have Andrea, she has that data, so I can have her present.
I just wondered if
Sure
it's
that.
even worth
Yeah.
the time anymore if it's such a low take rate.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a full lunchroom in the morning.
Yeah, you're still talking over 100 and some kids.
But
That's a
it's
lot of
also-
kids
If you're
who
at
might otherwise be
30% of-
hungry.
It's hard to really grasp
600
still
kids.
the
Yeah, and
total
they might otherwise go
percentage,
hungry.
because it's K4.
Yeah.
You know, so if you think it's a full lunchroom, but that's still K4 kids. You know, so that's roughly 150 kids
Yeah.
out of 625.
Yeah.
Is it cost effective for us though?
Those are good questions. The other things we inquired about beyond just this was overall satisfaction of the open house. Some of the things that the kindergarten teachers and I heard from families is that one-on-one time. They really wanted that one-on-one time with their child's teacher. So one of the things that we talked about is with Roundup, a lot of the information was probably a repeat from Roundup for this open house. So we talked about being able to shift it to being where teachers put together their class list Wednesday evening, so that by the time Thursday rolls around, we can be letting families know who their child's teacher is ahead of time. We can do conferences that night, that one-on-one night, and offer perhaps some daytime options on Friday. Because if you look at the next question, or sorry, Matt, if you go up a little bit, of how many people attended
The other way, keep going.
This way?
conferences, not a lot. And some of it was they had to work, it didn't work out in their schedule. Part of it is because they had already taken some time off during that week since their kindergartner wasn't in school. So we knew.
And the format that we did at the open house was we presented in more of a teacher meeting, curriculum night type thing. You know, we did like a slideshow going through all that information about how my classroom works and how so-and-so's classroom works. Each classroom did that, which is what we typically go through 20 times at one-to-one conferences, but we still missed out on that individual time.
Yeah.
So for some of us, in November at conferences was really our first, you know, other than just the, hi, how you doing, nice to meet you.
Which is why we went to that back to school conference format a few years ago, is we wanted to get away from that open house because we didn't feel like families were getting that one-on-one attention they needed to talk to the teacher of their child. So it makes sense that we need to be thinking about how to do it differently here, because that was probably, out of all the feedback, that was the biggest, I'd say most comments made was that one-on-one piece with the teacher versus I'm sitting in my child's teacher's classroom hearing about information on a slideshow and things like that. They wanted more of that direct contact.
And I think we as teachers, that would be probably the only thing that, at this point, that we really significantly missed or felt was not big.
This optional one, was this the one-on-one or is this the larger group setting?
The optional one was on Friday would have been one-on-one.
One-on-one. I wonder if it was like a Monday or a Thursday. Fridays are tough. You know, that might be another thing to consider too. You know, might have been. I'm sure there was a football game, right? So there's a lot of people that probably considering that.
That was during the day on Friday, but I mean,
Yeah.
and that was just the only way we could do it if we were going to have it all
1 week, yeah.
kind of compact, you know, because they don't want to come and meet me a week later necessarily either.
Sure.
You know.
No, that's fair.
It was a little, I mean, it's tricky. It was tricky to try to, I don't know, we think we maybe have a better option for next year, but where we can do that, but.
Because really the biggest takeaways were the one-on-one conferences, making sure that there was that, you know, when a family, especially if it's their first child coming to kindergarten, just have that angst about where's my child going, what's the schedule going to be like, who's taking care of my, you know, I'm giving you my most precious gift. So just being mindful of how we share that information out as far as how kids get from bus to classroom, or, you know, just noting it and designated. We thought we did a pretty decent job, but from the parent lens, we need to revisit a few things. But really, that and the daycare options with that staggered start.
One question, the staggered start, and I'm sorry, I should know this, I don't. Did we start K5 and 9 on the same day, or were those different days as well as a district?
Because
I think
The freshman focus.
Yep, so
Yeah.
we do the freshman in 5-8,
Yeah.
Yep.
and then,
And then Kickstart one day was
Okay.
on that same day.
On the same day, okay.
Yep. And then the second day,
10 through 12 starts.
Okay.
And then the third day, which is Thursday.
well, no,
Okay.
5-12 started the second day, or was
No.
still, I'm sorry.
5-8 started the day after Labor Day.
Yeah.
Plus freshman. 10th
And
grade, 10 through 12 started Wednesday.
Wednesday.
1 through 4 started Thursday.
Yep.
And kindergarten officially started
That
that
following Monday.
Right.
So I talked with one family who had
Yeah.
an elementary, so a kindergartner and I think a freshman.
Sure.
So that family kind of hit the whole gamut.
Yeah.
And they actually, I think, I don't have a name, but I think this was one of the comments. just get a lot of really great feedback that they were new to the district, and when they first found out we were doing this Kickstart, one of the things they talked about was their own kindergarten experience, that they were so excited for their own child because they had a very different kindergarten memory that was so opposite of this.
Sure.
That they were really excited about being new to the district, and this is the forward thinking that this district is willing to take on.
Sure.
So.
Is there any reason kindergarten was a week later versus like the first one in? I'm just curious on that one.
I think part of it was trying to figure out how to get them here for back to school, like for that kickstart and rituals and routines and procedures.
Yeah.
But then to honor the parents wanting
Right.
to come in and do those one-on-one. But I think if we shift it now, the way that we're thinking, maybe we could
Okay.
look at a different start date.
The problem we ran into is we did, for years, we did like it was called launching into kindergarten in the summertime,
I
like
remember
in
that.
August.
Yep.
But we never got all of our kindergarten kids there.
Sure.
We had the same group of kids pretty much that was already had been in preschool usually. And a lot of our, I don't know if I can speak candidly, a lot of our heavy hitters that we know nothing about, had no information on, are registering like August 10th and later.
Right.
So this was the only way that, at this point, we could figure out, if someone's got some good ideas, fantastic, but that we could get every single kid there, we could provide transportation, and they could be there all day, like a normal day.
We also had.
Which was a huge, those were our big considerations.
When we did launching, and I don't know, Ben, what you guys have found with Jumpstart, you know, because you guys have been doing that for a long period of time, so I think families just kind of know when that date's coming as a fifth grade family. But when we were doing launching, we were also hearing from families, oh, we're going on our vacation. It's our last family vacation of the summer before school starts. And so that's the other thing. We also have sometimes families that walk in the door the day after Labor Day. And that's just, that is kind of this magic, you know, date for many of our new families, new to school.
There's a difference too. I mean, the Jumpstart program is not, you're not assessing kids. You're assessing your newest kids to the building. In some cases, never set foot in the building. So it's really trying to balance the load too. It's also trying to pair up students appropriately, and so you don't, it's really in the long run supporting kids at a higher level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
And we're definitely, I would say, reaping the benefits of that right now, because it was such a smooth start. I think we've had overall less behavior issues than, it'd be interesting to pull the data. Yeah, because that would be, but I mean, just in general, it's been a much smoother, less chaotic feel to it. And I know the groups that we started with, because we kind of had to put them into some initial groups to kind of have a starting place.
Well, and we also did want to honor preschool teachers who had them and who knew them, so we did, you know, draw that into consideration too.
But there was two groups, one we pulled 10 kids out of that were kind of on our big list of like, ooh, 10 kids out of one of those initial groups. That would have been a class. There was another group I think we pulled 6 out of, and then the others came kind of randomly after that. So I mean, right there we would have had 2 classes
Of higher needs.
with huge amounts of needs.
Yep.
And then I think that's where we sometimes have seen those escalations of some behaviors that maybe are manageable if there isn't so many.
Dispersed, yeah.
But if there was 10 in one group,
I think
There's those other kids in that class that aren't getting their needs met.
Yep,
because
absolutely.
the time and energy is
Yeah.
geared more towards those.
I tell you, I think you have to look at the data and say, you know, 70% or higher felt good about the experience. You know, I think you can chalk up of that 100% of parents, probably 75% of them really truly don't know what you're talking about right now or haven't thought about those rationales. So I think you look at the combination of really successful or positive data and then your internal knowledge of how you know things were positive, and tweak some of the feedback pieces that are just logical, and yeah, it makes sense to do that, and I think it's a great product.
Well, and I think we did get some really great feedback from the survey. Like, the last question on here, any other comments? We had parents give us some of their feedback as far as just beyond the questions. And I think we took that and from what right now we have on paper, I think it looks really, I think it's just gonna be a better fit. It's just making it better. And I think some of the things that the K team came up with that I was just looking at today, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes total sense. And I'm so excited because I can see this being an even better fit for kids for next year, which wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have put this survey out. So it's a good thing that we did, so we can just always be trying to get better.
That's excellent. It's good stuff.
Plus, I think, it's more fair and more healthy for our staff.
Oh, gosh,
so.
yeah.
And
Which
for,
is a good
I mean,
thing.
ultimately, it's, yeah, I mean, for us, but also, I mean, our kids are they're just calmer. They're able to just come in and be like, whew, because school isn't chaotic, or whatever. So I think it's a huge benefit to both.
Great, thank you.
My only comment was just if there had been any thought about what you do with 1st through 4th graders those days. If there's something or had thoughts on what you could do with them, whether it's sending them on a field trip or, a camp or something like that, where they just, where you're not having to have the parents try to figure it out.
Yeah. And I think that, when we decided to shift to this and getting to know our kindergartners before we actually placed them, there was some other talk from grades 1 through 4, like, oh my gosh, that would be great to be able, because you do your best to use the data from the spring to make some placements for the fall, but they're different kids, as far as getting, older and having different experiences over the summer. So I know that the grades 1 through 4 teams have, talked about what maybe could we be doing differently that maybe could spring off of some of the things that came from Kickstart, and I think that might be something to think about. So, but please continue to offer your thoughts and feedback on that too. If you continue to hear things from the community.
Thank you both.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah. Financial controls.
Okay. I'm just going to be very straightforward with this. There's obviously been some negative press, not with our district, but unfortunately with one of our friends and neighbors. And they're doing a lot of really great things. And I don't want this to be perceived as, look at, we're doing all the right things, because the truth of the matter is, bad things can happen anywhere. And I felt like it was important to put this on as just a reminder, not only for us as a board and admin team, but also for the public, to see all the different pieces that we have in place to try to make sure that we prevent fraud and theft and all those negative things that really drag you down. So I just want to go through a few things, and I think it's important to read them, because a lot of times people don't necessarily look at board book, but they might listen to or watch the video. So one of the things that we have in place, and please stop and ask questions about it or say, have you thought of this or whatever, but Amy's here to talk and share and answer questions as well. But we have a treasurer in place, as you all know. They have the responsibility, Connie, right now as our treasurer, has the responsibility of coming in the district office to look over the bills. Previously it was Lauren. They both have done that faithfully, and she does ask from time to time if she has a question about a particular item, and Lauren did the same thing, would ask questions of our finance director. In this case it's Amy, and Nikki, who writes, does a lot of the accounts payable and accounts receivable, or myself. So that's one control that we have. Then we do something, and not every district does this. I think sometimes we take for granted this is something that, well, because we do it, other districts do it. At every meeting we have the financial statements attached to our regular school board meetings. They're on time, you know, for the most part. In the past years, we've gotten delayed on this, but I believe since Amy's come on board, they've been on time, and they are reviewed and approved. You have the opportunity to review them, ask questions about them at those board meetings, and then they are approved then by you in the consent agenda.
Just if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Point of clarification, that is also a individual printing of each of the checks and the disbursements. So, you know, by name. So the full board gets to review and see where every single payment has gone in the district and can question it, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Additionally, and again, this is something that, you know, I would assume all districts have discussions about, but we have a budget that's very transparent. Hopefully you agree. It's subject to initial board approval. And then what we've done, since I've been here, we've done a revised budget. At least one revised budget. And we do that as part of our budgeting process for the next fiscal year. So you approved the budget in June. We'll do a revision here coming up February, March, somewhere in there. And then obviously our final is our audited version, so which we just had. So that's something that, you know, has really a triple check on the annual basis. As you all know, our work sessions really beginning, some could say January, but to be safe, beginning in February through June, we constantly have discussions about budgeting. Whether it's, we break it down and we talk about the assigned versus the unassigned. So there, I think that's fairly detailed. There's an opportunity to ask questions, to prioritize, and to get things right there. And then we go through the process of securing bids, and you know, we don't have any particular contracts. I didn't put this up there, but kind of jogs my memory. When we do projects, we don't have specific contracts in place with companies. We go out and we secure bids, and you see that throughout the year. We just did our snow plowing bids, bread and milk every couple of years we do. Those are some of the constants, but last year we had our tennis courts. Last year so we took bids for that. Last year we also did our insurance, our liability, property, casualty insurance. We gave our incumbent a chance to, you know, win the bid, but also we shopped it around to other companies. It was very competitive, resulted in, I want to say, but correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, probably a $30,000 savings in premium to the district. So, you know, because somebody has secured our business doesn't mean they retain our business. Yeah. We want to make sure we continue to get the best deal for the district. I've attached our financial procedures related to creating a purchase order and completing the entire purchase. There are safeguards in here to protect the district in these procedures. One of the safeguards is that no specific administrator is provided with a P card. Okay, we don't do that here. I've never taken one. I don't have. You can dig through my wallet right now. I never have had a district with my name on it. It is by building or by department. Tim Bezick would be the only exception because Tim is the facilities guy, and like today we had a boiler pump go down, so he needs to call and place the order and get parts. So that would be the exception. Otherwise, we have by department, and there's a process in order to go ahead and use that P card, and Amy certainly can speak to that. And Nikki obviously hounds people for those receipts and gets those and gets it processed. We have a gift policy, and I just called that one out specifically. It's 421. It is attached, and that governs the acceptance of gifts and limits to a $5 gift acceptance. And that's a relatively new policy that was put forth in the legislature or passed by the legislature several years ago. We have an asset inventory. This is in the infancy stage, but we do have an asset inventory procedure that the entire district is working on right now. We purchase tags that are non-removable. So every time we have a new item, they're supposed to be tagged, like computers should be tagged. That sticker then can't be renewed or removed, and then there's a spreadsheet that goes along with that tag. So we're just starting that process, but we do have that in place now, and you know, that's the goal, is to ladders and all of our equipment that's considered an asset to get that tagged and put on our inventory spreadsheet. And finally, we have a number of policies that provide guidance and safeguards, and I'm not going to go through each one of them, but we have a number of them attached here, and it's quite extensive in terms of what we have in place. There's let's see, modification of school district budget, establishment of I can't remember, adoption of school district budget, accounting, annual audit. I can't read it. Development and maintenance of an inventory, fixed assets. That's policy 704, I believe. 705 is investments. 706 is acceptance. Does that say 706? Acceptance of gifts. There are several acceptance of gifts policies pertaining to different things. Student activity account. There's an auditing piece that goes along with that. Our fund balance, which we were able to report at our last board meeting that we improved on our unassigned fund balance. Our 721 is the uniform grant guidance policy regarding Federal Reserve sources. And then 421 is the gifts to employees and school board members. So we do have a number of pieces in place. Just really quickly here, I didn't mention this, but Amy and I started last year, so the 2017-18 school year. I mentioned this in my weekly update, but we have school finance hot topics, and this is the first session that we had this year. We're going to do 4, so we're going to do quarterly sessions for our staff. Any of our employees are invited to come, and we basically explain to them, you know, we just go through really the audit and what that looks like in this first session. We're going to talk about referendums and what that looks like. We're going to just to educate our staff in what school finance, or a little bit about what school finance is all about, UFARs and all the different reporting standards by that 17-digit accounting code, how we divide funds up into these different funds. Fund 1, which is a general fund. Fund 2 is food service. Community service, which is Fund 4. Fund 6, which is our building construction. Fund 7, our debt service fund. And then we drilled into a little bit about what the audit looked like this year. But we're holding those, you're welcome to come as board members, but we're holding those quarterly, so our next one will, I believe we planned it for January. So that's another piece that we're just trying to be as transparent as possible and share data. This is something that we've shared at this table before, and it takes a look at the operating referendum comparison between school districts by county. You can see, if you look at just these counties, that's the average operating referendum, which is $390 more per pupil than our district has. And this is what's interesting to me. That would equate to about $712,000 more in revenue if we were able to do that much more.
When did you have your first one? Like, did you have did you have good teacher turnout?
No, we had
and staff
2 or
turnout?
3, I think, people came.
Okay. Hopefully more come to the second
It's
one.
usually those who are in an admin class that want to learn more about school finance.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
I shouldn't say that wasn't completely the case, but.
Yeah, it's important though to be that transparent. And
Mm,
I've had a lot of
absolutely.
questions. I've had a lot of questions on how our district is transparent and then what the different numbers go, just with the other issues that have come up around the state. And it's proud to be able to say, yeah, it's real easy to see. You can see it in before our board, we post all of our financials. You can call up
Yep.
the district office and ask for them. I mean, it's, it could not be more
You wanna come to the
transparent.
microphone? And you've worked in another district too. I mean, you can speak to our transparency versus others, I suppose. Do you feel?
I feel Jordan is very transparent. I've never had a school board member come in and look at any bills, invoices, or anything.
In your previous district?
In my previous district. I don't, yeah, I mean, I don't know what more I could do.
Yeah.
There's so many checks and balances that I believe are in place.
It doesn't make it impossible, but it makes it that much more difficult.
It does, and
Yeah.
there's, you know, someone's always checking it over, like.
You bet.
You know, Nikki goes through the credit card statement, I go through the credit card
Yeah.
statements. The purchasing, you know, the teacher's gonna do the requisition, the secretary's gonna enter it, the principal has to approve it, and then I have to approve it.
Yeah.
There's, you know, the big thing is everybody should have prior approval before anything. That is huge. I think that's huge.
It's good.
Appreciate that.
It's comforting to know, yes.
Well, and one thing too is, I don't know if this is good or bad, but I know that I usually get by the end of the day, if I send an email or make a phone call, either to you or Nikki, my answer is, I don't then publicly ask that question at the board meeting, which I probably should. Why did we purchase these umbrellas that cost this amount of money? Well, they're part of the booster club, that's what they're giving for, you know, whatever. I guess I always felt like I got my answer. I didn't realize maybe the public would like the answer, you know, whatever. But the other thing is the thoroughness of the documentation of who did what, and it could be a front and a back sheet for one receipt about this line was bought for this reason, so it is all documented, and like you said, it's signed off by at least 5 times by the time somebody's gotten through. And I agree with Tom, things can get through. I myself, in my job, realized like, oh, I didn't bring my, that I don't have to pay taxes. Well, in our district, you have to pay it yourself.
Yeah, we do too.
And put it in.
Yep.
So, you know, that's something that you learn real quick. Well, a buck here, a buck there. I'm not paying that out of my own money. So you learn that really, really quick. But just to take it a step further, to look that all your checks are in order. I'm missing a check. Oh, that's in a different file. That's in the Benjamin Bus file because that's a fatter file. You know, the things that you learn. Voided checks. Voided checks you just don't throw away. All the voided checks are in order, and why was it voided, and what check number replaced this voided check. So it's such a detailed, and I agree, I don't think all districts show everything that we get to see, but that's to our advantage, because then somebody's doing checks and balances.
For me, I like detail. I want all the detail.
And so does Nikki, because you can tell she does.
Yeah.
So I do think, you know, in summary, I think we do have some really good procedures and obviously policies in most of our MSBA, you know, the standard policies, but as several of you have said, if you are dishonest or if you do something that you shouldn't do, eventually you will get caught. So I guess that's the other check and balance is you can't run.
No.
It's going to catch up to you. So we do our best to have our internal controls, and obviously you as a board are part of those controls, and that's all we can do.
There's also 2 little videos on my finance page that smart for that overview school finance and special ed. Just a little more information, stuff like that.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. And I believe that is it. We are done.
Quick one.
Do you have to shut that off?